it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. We're zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is, how do I stop getting triggered, including experiencing something which is called the startle response, when I am sort of around an environment. Oftentimes it's unpredictable, or it has specific triggers, meaning sounds, voices, situations, experiences, which launch you off into an uncomfortable and oftentimes uncontrollable feeling of anxiety or panic or some avoidance behavior, including that of fear or sort of, a setting up of a social anxiety that renders one oftentimes feeling helpless, out of control, or dysfunctional, wanting to leave or flee the situation, not being able to stay focused and sort of feel like your usual self. It's very uncomfortable to be triggered because you don't know when it's going to occur. You oftentimes don't know or have a correlation that's going to set it off, or if you do, kind of have a sense of the connection. In other words, you might be around a specific setting. You might be at a restaurant, you might be at a church, you might be at your workplace, where all of a sudden sort of something sets you off and startles you. This is known as the startle response, or what is also known as being triggered. However, being startled, the specific startle response is oftentimes exhibited in oftentimes post-traumatic stress syndrome disorders, particularly those people who are set off by something which is auditory, which means something that they hear that launches them into this specific response. Meaning, you have an immediate feeling of really severe fear, and oftentimes, stuck in the frozen, sort of fight or flight response, which means you're feeling like a deer in headlights. You don't know how to move. You don't know how to handle the situation. You just experience a complete onset of fear. Your heart might be pounding. You might have a tense chest, but you might begin to sweat, and you're just feeling this feeling of panic or fear that causes you to want to flee or stop or pull over or go to the corner, or you just oftentimes, it's a very immediate and uncomfortable feeling, like I can't go on. And it startles you, meaning that it causes you to sort of shake. Your eyes might open wide, your mouth might open, you might want to hide. And, this is very uncomfortable because it's so extreme. It's so complete. It takes over your complete nervous system, your central nervous system, your sympathetic or parasympathetic nervous system is all involved. And it's difficult to forecast, predict, and then handle this smoothly, specifically in social situations where, other people are watching. And so it can become very debilitating. So, and also this is set up in a sort of freeze or fawn mode, meaning there's a cycle to it. And oftentimes this is also felt with a sense of anger and then a sense of embarrassment or shame. So being really, really angry, meaning like, darn it, agitated that you're way off, you're feeling off course, or in this cycle again, meaning, could be then feeling like anger at the stimulus, which could be the setting or someone in the setting. And then embarrassed, feeling that you're embarrassed by your reaction, which is uncontrollable, yet you want to gain control. This trigger setting, particularly, when you've had a background of narcissistic abuse, is very common to experience triggers of all sort, which means basically something in your environment sets up that same old circuit, that same, stimulus response, and then is automatic, which means it just lights up that whole previous experience and takes you by surprise. And the trigger is oftentimes needs to be understood in order to get what I call, a sense of metacognition, or being able to forecast that experience. It's important to understand it and understand yourself with a sense of compassion, but as well as understanding this with an intellectual component as well, meaning a body-mind connection, meaning to make sense of it. And then how do you then handle this feeling? Fear is a very common response because it means that your needs are not being met and that you're in a situation which is attacking your feeling of safety and your existence. So oftentimes a protection is required, that you want to protect yourself. You want to shield yourself. You want to defend yourself. So triggers oftentimes are very similar to an original, that whole neurobiology, that whole neural pathway, and the neurochemicals are lit up that are, basically exhibited when it's very similar to a previous experience that you have experienced. So for those people who have experienced narcissistic abuse, psychopathic abuse, when they find themselves in a very specific setting, it can be very akin or close to what you have previously experienced. So it might be a very similar setting, like a very similar work setup. The lighting can be similar. The arrangement can be similar. The feeling of voices in the background can be similar, where you might have felt, isolated, where you might have felt targeted, where you might have been betrayed before, where this individual might be, or your life might have been in a very specific situation where this had occurred before. So I don't want to say like a deja vu, but something similar that sets you off, which feels like a deja vu. Like you've been here before. That feeling of deja vu means I've been here before, and this could be like, it almost feels like a very uncomfortable dream state, and it throws you off guard, off center, off track. So when this occurs, know that within yourself, as perhaps being previously experiencing narcissistic abuse or psychopathic abuse, something which we don't want to necessarily label, but let's just say you have experienced it before, and it sets you off personally, which means it gets you into an uncomfortable, uneasy state, a feeling that you haven't mastered this as of yet. You haven't gotten a grip on it as of yet. So people who have been through narcissistic abuse or psychopathic abuse, where they've been taken advantage of, they've been lied to, they've had certain situations that have been hidden from them, or they've been in relationships with people who have raised their voice, who have blamed them, who have taken something away from them, who have betrayed them, who have behaved and acted in ways that were contrary to your best interest and contrary to your best self, is going to have that same feeling of being triggered. There is a trigger stimulus response. And so when this occurs, you have to know this about yourself. You have to learn this as a common thread or a common sort of programming that you have learned or picked up before. You've learned to be alarmed. You've learned to be triggered. You've learned to have all of your responses on full throttle. In other words, you were in a state of non-mastery before with this relationship. So this is oftentimes set up before the lessons learned, before the identification of narcissistic or psychopathic abuse has occurred before. So you didn't know how to handle it. You didn't know what you were dealing with. You didn't know the outcome. You didn't know the cause. You didn't know this, be able to identify this before in your environment. And so you were rendered helpless or rendered, without being in mastery of the environment, because, and it was not in your best interest. So there's this really intensity of, life preservation. In other words, something very important to you as is feeling threatened. It can be your income, it can be your living situation, it can be the dissolving of a marriage or a family. something, serious and life-changing to you. So there's this sort of really perfect storm which is set up. And a perfect storm meaning like there's the perfect, setting for this to be set off within you. So you have to know this about yourself, that you have like an on-off switch which will go on and get your attention during specific situations. So you have to know this about yourself. Just like a weatherman is able to forecast specific situations, you need to be able to identify this very, very super clearly to know that there's conditions that can result in this feeling, and that you need to know how to take heed and prepare and sort of shelter and protect yourself ahead of time to know that you have the tools and resources. So being able to identify and have the tools is to know when this social anxiety or trigger arises. Is it in this work setting? Is it in this holiday setting? Is it in my free time? Is it while I'm driving? Is it while I'm emailing or texting? What are the specific elements in the environment, the cause that creates this effect in you, so you can understand what are the moving parts here? What are things that could set me off? But now that I know better, I don't want to be a victim of this. I'm no longer ignorant to this cause. I actually have a lot of knowledge, and most importantly, knowledge applied to help me identify and work through this situation and master it and have emotional mastery. When we talk about emotional mastery, it's very important to involve all of the senses that are engaged and bringing information in, because we draw information in from our senses, but also how do we process it using our intuition and then our higher order thinking. Not only the five senses, but your sixth and seventh sense. In other words, meaning your intuition and your higher awareness, which I basically call, which is your, also in psychology, which is called metacognition. Your ability to think about what you're thinking about. It's a higher order thinking process which you need to tap into, engage, and live in order to sort of really fully heal comfortably, peacefully through a relationship after experiencing narcissistic abuse, psychopathic abuse, and then the resulting trauma that ensues from this. It's to know that there are going to be triggers which call your attention. We're going to serve as like a test, like a broadcast system. Testing, you want to be able to pass the test, i.e. acknowledge the symptoms, which means this trigger, being able to label it within your such, I'm getting uncomfortable. This is setting me, to be able to identify, before, ahead of time, what we call forecasting or foresight, which you have to get out of the fight or flight for that higher order thinking, which is in the prefrontal cortex, which is to apply lessons learned, using your best judgment, and then making a plan or sort of a vision for yourself moving forward. And to be able to experience this within yourself and not have to run for shelter, push the panic button, freak out, flee, lose it, lose your shirt, lose an arm and a leg, whatever it is, before you hit the panic button. And so when you really sort of do the work, it is important to be able to forecast this and know that in this setting, and just say, okay, usually, before, and have like a before and after sort of in your mind, a before and after. Before meanings previously, before I learned about narcissistic and psychopathic abuse, I was in a trap. These were the situations. People were yelling at me. They were texting behind my back. They were taking my children away. They were not including me. They weren't including me in the loop. They were, and I had perceived my experience as such. In other words, and when this happened, I experienced myself as not good enough, not smart enough, not lovable, not worthy of being kept in the loop, or isolated, left out. So, in other words, just a couple things which coalesce or come together to set this up. And oftentimes, the fear can be false. It can stand for false evidence appearing real, meaning it seems as if, this is going to be life-threatening, or it's going to really launch me into a defense mechanism. It's going to cause me to yell, shout, do something which is not always a desirable feeling. In other words, I don't want to lose it in the workplace. I don't want to lose it at the family gathering. I don't want to lose it when, this is, a time just for me to be cool, calm, and collected, when there's nothing really to be alarmed or triggered. False evidence appearing real. So the mind, then, once you've been through this sort of experience, it creates sort of a sensitivity or a hot button within you. It causes you to be hypersensitive, hyper aroused. This is serving you. In other words, danger. Your body is informing you, hey, newsflash, guess what? There's something, that you need to pay attention to here. It's getting your attention. You have a hypersensitivity. In other words, this system sort of lights up and you're triggered. You're reacting very, intensely to a situation. In other words, a situation which could be responded to at this level. Oftentimes you find you're reacting at a whole nother level that doesn't warrant the response, and so you need to be able to identify this first when you're just sort of thinking about your day, your week, or whatever your trigger it is. You need to be able, when you're cool, calm, and collected, just cruising, on your everyday tempo, your everyday baseline, where you're not, when you watch these videos, you might be driving, you might be working, you might be meditating. But it's important to, kind of see these events from like a bird's eye perspective or your higher level perspective. In other words, to know, when I'm around this person, when I'm around this setting, when I'm around this sort of situation, which can cause, this, a noisy restaurant, a noisy workplace, people talking or whispering, or what appears or feels like triangulation. If you're being left out, and you see people talking in the corner, that might trigger you to how you felt before. This person cheated on you behind your back, or they, and this caused your child to be taken away or to lose your job. So something sets up a very intense reaction where you're alarmed, where, you needed to protect yourself, or you were taken advantage of before, hitherto, being ignorant, unknowing, not informed, not educated about this person, and then the ramifications and result for you. So you were not aware. So it's important to create awareness within yourself of this. Like, when I did this before, when I heard this before, when I felt this before, this is what caused it. I felt left out. I felt ostracized. I felt isolated. I felt unloved. I felt people were talking about me. So it causes you to become hyper aroused, and then go through all sorts of, situations in your mind that, causes you to feel, this same feeling. You become hyper vigilant, hyper aroused. So you need to realize that this is a natural, normal reaction when your relationship or your life was at bay. In other words, okay, this is how my system went on full throttle. It was getting juiced up. It was getting, it was giving me, all this energy, all this frantic, frenetic, etheric energy. So I know that when I'm around this, I need to calm down and have a realistic perception. In other words, to breathe through the setting and say, okay, identify it. It's not that bad. Okay, it's just this. And begin to have some body-mind connection and separation from the environmental factors. In other words, have a body-mind separation from these causative factors. And so when we talk about the senses, to ground yourself, oftentimes you need to have a physiological response right away that calms the setting down. So it shows you can put the brakes on the trigger. So let's say, for example, a lot of people get triggered, maybe when they're driving, and their heart starts to pound. They start to sweat. They feel that maybe, the anxiety that nobody will be here for me while I'm out on the highway, and no one knows where I am, and people, my car might do this. So they have false evidence appearing real. Their mind is running amok with them, telling them, no one's gonna know I'm here. So, or anxiety, that those cops are gonna pull me over, and then I'm not gonna have my license or my insurance. So their mind begins to run away with them. So you need to get your mind back and just calm down and do an immediate physical response that can bring you to safety. For example, showing yourself that you have control and mastery over the situation. So here it is, being able to identify ahead of time and know it, yep, here it is. Here's that feeling where my heart's pounding. Here it is where I'm sweating. Here it is where I'm, having that feeling. So then you do an immediate physical connection that connects with you physiologically and grounds you in the setting. So if you're driving, pulling over the car, if you're at work, taking a moment to identify, breathe, collect yourself, collect your senses, whether you step away from the desk, you get a glass of water, you go to the bathroom, you go outside, you go and shake it off for a moment. You might, take a look and just look at your, get a place where you can look out the window, look out the door, take a breather, take 5, and ground yourself and being able to say, okay, here it is. And then immediately when that happens, bring in a new behavior that gives a message to your physiological self. You're, rewiring yourself kinesthetically, meaning using your kinesthesiology, your body-mind connection, meaning your movement, what you do, your body, then get yourself grounded, because physiologically is going to be your quickest route to calming down. So getting a glass of water, getting, something cool to drink, getting something cool to eat, getting something in your mouth, not smoking, not drinking, but doing something that's going to cool and calm you down, going outside, feeling something on your skin, feeling something in your nose. You can carry essential oils. You can carry, a little perfume sampler, something that smells good, putting on your sunglasses for a moment, or putting on your reading glasses, going smelling the flowers, getting and smelling fresh air, getting and smelling your essential oils, something that's cool and calming like peppermint, or whatever you like, maybe something like lavender, something like spearmint, something like the citruses, whatever calms you down. Usually, the holy basil, the frankincense, the more sandalwood, the earthy smells might do it for you, where you then, smell something that triggers you to calm down, calm your, breathe in deep from your little, you can get a little jar of essential oils and carry them in your pocket. You can also carry a healing stone. You can carry something that is grounding, like especially good for grounding is your black tourmalines, which can be smooth, or you've got the real fibrous, shiny kind of black tourmaline, which is very, very grounding stone, as well as garnet, ruby zoistite, even things like this, rhodochrosite, is a very good healing stone for you to keep around you. This is black tourmaline. It's known as a personal talisman. And I would get up. Let me just see if I have any right here. I think I've shown it in videos before, but black fibrous tourmaline, or black tourmaline, is a great grounding stone. It's a personal talisman, which you can then rub and then feel and then look at. But there's an energetic experience, an energetic exchange that you'll take with your protection stones. Some people like the purple amethyst, or and then combined with, or this, which is this is a purple tanzanite, which is from Tanzania. It's a rare sort of crystal, which comes from a very small mine out of Tanzania. Am I getting the country right? Which basically will ground you. So you need to incorporate your senses. And, maybe doing something else like putting some, soothing lotion on, being able to breathe, and then, calm yourself down. Everything is good. I've got this. Everything is good. I've got this. Everything is good. I've got this. So calming yourself down with affirmations as well. So incorporating that sound, soothing, maybe take a walk around a little bit, and then just being able to, take 5 minutes, and then counter the trigger with these calming sense, using all of your senses to rewire yourself, and then, use this to hold on to, soothe, and then you can also do a similar grounding exercise where a lot of people then will calm down, and then they'll do an anchor, which is known as an anchor. So another physiological response that you can do to show your body that you're calm. So oftentimes an anchor is when you put your thumb and your forefinger together, and you might go like this, or you might go like this, and you might stand for a moment, or do this in your pocket where you put your forefinger. And this it anchors you down to the present, clarity, and calm. I am centered in the present, clarity, and calm. So you can do this and create an anchor which signals to your body that all is well. All is well. I am here and all is well. I am here and all is well. So being able to do this, and it anchors your energy from cycling within, and you're not taking in new unwanted energy. This is known as an anchor. And you can study that as well as studying the specific stones. And you can carry protective personal talismans with you. Rose quartz, which symbolizes love and unconditional love, generates a lot of very sacred love energy, sacred unconditional love energy. I could do a whole video on personal talismans. I'm a big believer in that. And then the energy in the natural minerals, the natural rocks and composite and amalgams of a couple. So you can carry a couple rocks again that give you the radiance of love and protection and higher intuition. So you can get the colored stones that align with the different chakras, the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, indigo, violet, and then the clarity. I can do a whole video on the chakras, the energy of the chakras, and a protection crystal. You can also do some research on it yourself. I'm a high believer in that. Stimulating your highest, which is the crown chakra, you can get with your very clear crystals. If you're really wanting clarity, you can carry this with you or wear this in your pocket if you wear like a jean jacket, or put it in your pocket if you wear like a jean vest. You can have these sacred crystals, or you might have something else that you treasure, or you might get a recovery gift and have this in your pocket. It might be, a little saying. It might be a prayer card. It might be something that you always carry with you that brings you that peace and serenity. The serenity prayer you might want to bring with you. Having something in your backpack, or your purse, or your knapsack, or you might wear a fanny pack, something that you carry around you while you're working or traveling or walking or what have you, that you can always keep with you to have like a go-to anchoring experience. So these can often help you get mastery and control and reprogram that automatic response, and you'll be able to stop the triggerings from occurring, stopping that uncomfortable fear state, stopping that uncomfortable freeze or fawn state where you're sort of docile, you're sort of giving up. So it gives you a chance to reroute, reprogram, and recondition. And you can do this as a practice experience to, in other words, reprogram yourself even before the trigger occurs. So going through these steps that we've just outlined, getting cool, calm, and collected, taking yourself for 5, going for a walk, holding your meditative, and again, this protective rocks are specifically great because they help and elevate and enhance the anchoring experience. So there's a new meaning that is created. There's a new go-to programming that helps you to rewire and engage in what is known as neuroplasticity. Dr. Bruce Lipton, very big on rewiring the brain. Dr. Joe Dispenza as well. But it's the how-to. It's the knowledge applied. How do you apply this in a meaningful way to your situation, your own individual self? So you need to understand that you have the power to reprogram your autonomic nervous system so you don't launch into that startling. You don't launch into that fight or flight. You don't start to fawn and just, be like a docile, you get mastery back. You get control back. You get empowerment back. You're able to plow through it. You're able to just go through it without that experience. You're just able to push through, bulldoze through, fly through, assert yourself through, anchor and fly yourself through. So if you need to take 5, begin to practice these anchoring experiences so you can consciously, use conscious effort to rewire your feeling state so you will prevent the triggers from happening. So you've already got a pre-programmed setting, carrying these with you, so you've got yourself solid. You might need to rehearse these a couple of times again and again, resensitizing yourself, going and using very soft fabrics, fleecy, things that feel good, flannel, really super soft brush cotton, that automatically cause you to feel good, and that you can pull in and then, touch, smell, taste, listen, feel, hear, all of your senses. Have a sense of intuition. I know that this is particularly good for me because I love rocks, I love nature, I love the divine, I love minerals, I love shiny things, whatever it is, and then incorporating this and applying to your anchor state will help you tremendously moving forward. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace out.